Hey, so we are ready to start gessoing our canvas, and I say canvas, but actually I'm going to be using watercolor paper. Should you be using watercolor paper for your work? Nope, not necessarily. If you want to, you can. I am using a hot press finish watercolor paper, but you can use a canvas, you can use whatever you want to use as far as your background, your painting. For me, I am going to gesso this, and I like this because it is square. And for the purpose of our lessons, I wanted to keep it in frame. So really, I'm doing 8x8 for this lesson, but you do not have to. Why watercolor paper? You don't have to use watercolor paper. There's acrylic paper that you can use. There's oil paper. I like that because I'm using watercolor paper. It is so flat, similar to acrylic or oil paper. This one in particular is by Fluid, and they have a really nice quality watercolor paper, and I love this. I don't know if you can see on the ends here, but it's all sealed on two sides. So when you're working, it's not going to curl up on you right away. So I'm actually going to gesso straight onto this. The gesso that I'm using is Golden's Bright White Acrylic Primer, and you can see that right here. And I also have two little buckets of water, and I love them. I got these from my local dollar store, but they have a little lid, so I'm not spilling when I'm trying to get everything ready. I have my printout ready, but I'm not going to need that right away. But I did want to show it to you, and it's in the same size of my workspace, the 8x8. So when it's time for me to transfer this, it's going to go perfectly onto my paper. I'm going to get rid of that. I am using a glass palette. It's easy to clean, and I like to use gray. So I just put a gray throwaway palette underneath this. And gray is going to actually be able to show you your colors more accurately than white. So even when we start to begin, you're going to notice that I'm going to be painting over this white surface. And I will talk about that more, but it just will make you see your colors more accurately than trying to paint on a white surface. So let's get to it. I have my gesso. I'm just going to open that up. Ooh. And another thing that you want to keep handy is a rag, a towel. I use these shop wipes because they don't leave a lot of that, like fuzz and stuff that that paper towels can leave behind. So I keep a whole bunch of these towels near, and this is just going to help me wipe up anything extra. Should you wet your paintbrush before you begin gessoing? I do not wet my paintbrush first. I like to have a very dry paintbrush because when you start to water it down, then you're like ruining, you're watering down the gesso as well. So a dry paintbrush to begin, and we're just gonna get to it. You should probably gesso any surface that you're working on first. And the reason why I say this is because you want to make sure that first it's going to be completely sealed, that it's not going to bleed through your paper like I'm using right now. This is going to give me a painting surface that I do not have to worry about. But say you're working on a canvas and you do not love the canvas pre-gessoed finish. Maybe there's too many holes in it, or the surface is super rough. What you can do is gesso it and take a fine grit sandpaper. And after your gesso has dried, you can lightly go over your working space with your sandpaper and get rid of all the unevenness. And gesso can be very sticky, so it's good to work quickly. And as you can see, I started by going one direction first, and I go the other direction next as it starts to dry. This way I kind of eliminate any like brush strokes. I am working on a hot press paper, and hot press is very smooth to the touch. That's the tooth. So if you hear someone talking about the tooth of paper, Tooth is the texture of the paper. Is it rough or is it smooth? And hot press is very smooth. And for me personally, I do like working on a smooth surface. I think it gives me a really nice finish, and it gives me a lot of options to get as detailed as I want without things kind of seeping into the texture of the paper. And I kind of feel like I may have gone heavy on this. So after this, we're just going to kind of even it out. I'm going horizontally right now, getting it all the way to the ends. And when I am done with that, I'm going to lightly glide it across the surface, going up, barely touching it to the surface of the paper. This way it can be really nice and smooth. And it's getting to that quality of texture that I like right now, which is super smooth. Is it going to dry this way, super smooth? Nope. So you have two options. For me, I'm leaving it because this is paper, and if you try to sandpaper over paper, then you're just going to be ruining the paper. But if you're working on a canvas and you feel like sandpapering it to get it nice and smooth, you can do that. And let's see here, it's looking pretty good. I'm going to find the areas that are a little bit thick and heavy, or that I want just slightly smoother. If you're pulling it, you're going to get more even lines. And I don't want to go too much more. I'm just going to find the places that are bothering me a little bit. Okay. Now we have to let this dry. And I don't mean like give it 5 minutes. I mean, give it a good chunk of time to completely dry. And now that I am done gessoing, this is when I'm going to put my paintbrush in my water. And before I move it to the next water, I'm just going to close this so I don't accidentally spill it. All right, I'm going to move that away. It's still pretty dirty, so this is when you can close this one up. Move on to the next one. Do I open and close it every single time? No. Ooh, smells tight. There we go. And there. Now it's so much cleaner, because if you do not have time to go and wash your brushes in between, then this is a really great way to get as much paint off of your brushes as possible if you're switching and moving around. All right, next I'm going to take my shop wipe and kind of just pat dry it. I don't want to ruin the bristles in any way, so I'm just going to kind of get the moisture off. Kind of like they say when you're like drying your hair, you don't want to rub your hair because it ruins your hair follicles. Same with your bristles. You have to like treat your brushes with kindness. All right, I'm going to leave that off to the side. And before we go, why is it important to gesso your paper before taping? Gesso is going to seal the paper, so when you tape it later and you peel that tape up after you're finished with your painting, it's not going to rip the paper. You still have to be careful. I mean, don't go crazy and just tear it off, but this is going to prevent your paper from ripping. Okay, so that we'll move on to the next step.